And what is up, gang? Thank you for checking out Sledgehammer TV. Tonight's Smackdown gives us their post-Royal Rumble Fallout show, setting up their road to WrestleMania in a very much more interesting way than Monday Night Raw could ever dream of doing. The Rated R Superstar showed up tonight on the Blue Brand to confront Roman Reigns as he'd been making the rounds all week long, hitting each champion on every brand. Is he going to choose the Tribal Chief and the head of the table to main event WrestleMania with? We'll have to wait and see. Are we going to hear from Bianca Belair? Is she going to make her choice tonight? Lots of reasons to tune into SmackDown, including a tremendous Intercontinental Championship triple threat match that was really a joy to watch. But fear not, loyal Sledgeheads, the hammer will come down because there were a couple of missteps on this show as well, and we are here to talk about them right here and right now. My name is Nick Nightmare. You are watching the Sledgehammer Wrestling Show's SmackDown Review and Reaction Show. Let's do it.
Sledgehammer Wrestling Show.
You know, before we get started, I hate doing this. This is the least favorite part of my job as a wrestling podcaster, journalist, whatever you want to call me. As it was reported earlier today that former WWE superstar Butch Reed, real name Bruce Franklin Reed, better known to most wrestling fans as Butch Reed, passed away due to heart complications earlier today. It's sad news. I hate when wrestlers pass away, and you know, you might remember him as Hacksaw Bruce Reed early in his career. You might remember him as Hacksaw Butch Reed from some of his time in the Southern Territories. But when I think of him, I think of the natural Butch Reed. And the first two things that come to mind when I think of the natural Butch Reed are the Doctor of Style, the Slickster, baby, and the first round matchup in the WrestleMania 4 World Championship tournament, where he was eliminated by, Macho Madness Randy Savage in a very good match. And that's probably my most vivid memory of him. Most fans probably, especially if you're a little younger than me, and especially if you're from the South as well, and we're big into WCW, you probably remember him more as one half of the famed tag team Doom, where he had a partnership with Ron Simmons. They were initially, I believe, managed by a woman until Teddy Long, holla 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 player, would come along and take Doom to their first WCW World Tag Team Championship reign. Butch Reed won championships everywhere, almost everywhere, seemingly everywhere except the WWE, of course, all throughout his career, which started in the late 70s, continued throughout the decades into 2002, where he retired in January. He has held championships in Mid-South Wrestling, Georgia Championship Wrestling, multiple NWA territories. Our thoughts and prayers and our condolences, of course, go out to his friends and family. The world of wrestling loses another legend in the natural Butch Reed, who passed away today at 66 years old. I can't take it. I hate it. And the Grim Reaper has struck again. Took another one of our brothers in arms. Butch Reed, respect, brother. You will be missed. History-making, innovative, trendsetter. Some of the things that could be said about some of the talent on tonight's show. History-making talent, trend-setting talent, like Roman Reigns, like Edge, like Bianca Belair, like Sasha Banks, like a lot of the good stuff that we got from tonight's episode of SmackDown. There was plenty of bad things, plenty of things wrong with tonight's show, and it didn't take long for some of those things to arise. The show started off tonight for SmackDown with Roman Reigns. In its standard SmackDown fashion, Roman Reigns comes out and does a promo. This promo, however, was very heartfelt. He was kind of miffed and insulted at the Rated R superstar that he did not show up to the Thunderdome just yet, and he's making Roman Reigns wait, I guess, making the champion squirm, so to speak, and Roman didn't appreciate Edge playing games with him. Why do you want to play games with me? In the way Roman Reigns has been lately, I would not want to be the one on the big dog's bad side. And Edge definitely starting off on the wrong foot here with Roman Reigns. It was your typical Roman Reigns stuff. Very good. He was flanked by Jey Uso. He was flanked by Paul Heyman. And we will have to wait and see by the end of this show if Edge will choose Roman Reigns. It's a great hook. I'm actually proud. I'm proud of the WWE with some aspects of this show. The fact that they didn't just come out this week and blow their load and tell us who each challenger for the championships will be as it pertains to the winners of the Royal Rumble. Usually they do that. They come right out and boom, oh, the very next night. No, I know who I'm facing this guy, but they're kind of slow burning it a little bit. Maybe I just jinxed it. Maybe I just gave them a compliment, and now Monday or next Friday, they're just going to come out and tell us, and we have plenty of time up until WrestleMania for them to play around with this a little bit. And to be honest with you, after seeing Edge all week long, confronting all three champions, honestly, I think it would be better for him to choose anybody but Roman Reigns. I know Roman, with the Blue Universal title, is viewed, at least by Vince McMahon, as the #1 champion. He's the main event. Right? We know this already, man. But I think the stories play out better with either Drew McIntyre, who is actually holding the championship that Edge never lost when he was forced to give it up and retire due to his injury, or if he chooses the NXT champion, Finn Balor, which is, for me, always been a dream match of mine to see. I always thought Finn Balor was almost a mirror of what we've seen in the early days of Edge's career, and that would be an amazing match. It would really elevate Finn Balor back to that main event status, I think. Even though he's the NXT World Champion, I think that match with Edge would really put NXT in a higher level. It would get more eyes on that product as you begin to build towards that match. And I believe that's a match Edge would want to have. A young lion, old lion type matchup. It would tell a great story. And on the converse side, you have Edge versus Drew, which really makes more sense. But Edge versus Roman right now is probably the biggest of the three matches, just based off of the momentum of Roman Reigns. We move on to the first match of the night, where we see Constable King Dickhead himself, Baron Corbin, taking on Dominic Mysterio. We have seen this match on SmackDown twice already. Both of those times, Constable King Dickhead beat Dominic Mysterio. Pretty convincingly both times, might I add. So naturally, tonight on SmackDown, we need to see this match again, complete with a repeat segment of a pre-match beatdown. Only this time, it was Constable King Dickhead Baron Corbin who beat up the babyface giant baby man son before the match. So I guess we could be happy that at least on the third time around they got it right, because we all know the first couple of times they had little Dominic playing the heel role, even though he's clearly the babyface here. We, of course, had to have Tiny Dad at ringside. It was the same old song and dance. Nothing really different here. There was nothing meaningful about it. Sadly, even though Dominic won this time, he lost twice already, so winning once doesn't really even the odds. So you can't even call them out on the 50-50 booking, which we will do a little bit later. But I still don't care. I don't care anything about what's going on here. Just turn on Tiny Dad already, giant baby son. Turn on Tiny Dad and do something interesting. Do something meaningful and set up a WrestleMania match. Rey Mysterio versus his son Dominic. The drama in there could be palpable. That would be so much more interesting than anything you could cook up with Murphy and Aaliyah and any other stupid storyline that you want to involve these two in. It's staring you dead in the face. Vince McMahon, just do it. Do it. You want to elevate Dominic? You want to make him look like something to the fans? Have him beat his dad. Have him be a heel on his own 2 feet. Don't have him join Seth Rollins. Don't have him join Constable Dickhead's little group now that he doesn't have, his wolves anymore. Just leave it be. Turn him heel on his own, wanting to get out of the shadow of his dad, away from the mask and the whole 9 yards. And let him be a man standing on his own 2 feet. Tell that story at WrestleMania, and a star can be born. But as of right now, they're stuck in mid-card limbo, wrestling the likes of King Corbin, and hopefully they don't revert them back to Seth Rollins, who got 2 promotional packages tonight, telling us that next week, the Messiah returns. And I'm sitting here telling you that he hasn't been gone long enough for me to give a shit. Congratulations to him on the birth of his child. Hope all is well. Wish he was staying home a little while longer. Because I just don't miss him enough yet. And I know he don't miss me at all. Because he's had me blocked on Twitter for the longest time. And I would be welcoming back Seth Rollins. Maybe if you gave me a little more time. But I feel like he's never even left. What are they going to do with him now that they've moved his feud on to Baron Corbin? We'll have to wait and find out when he comes back. Excuse me, next Friday night. Damn, Seth Rollins impressions making me hurt my throat. What's up with that? So then we have another rematch on this card tonight. This time, it's Daniel Bryan versus Cesaro for the second time in 3 weeks. The first time was so great that I'm going to give it a pass. Usually, we shit all over rematches. We give them poop hammers. But that's not the case this time. I was looking forward to this encounter once again. The only thing that sucks about it is that it's absolutely meaningless. There's nothing going on here. It's maybe the start of something, but they're not telling us very much. We've seen Shinsuke Nakamura in the back watching this match. He didn't come out and have anything to do with this match. Cesaro, his former friend. Daniel Bryan, he had a very good match with. He also defeated Daniel Bryan. They shook hands and began Shinsuke's babyface turn. And now there's really nothing happening here. We had another excellent match. It was much shorter than their first match, but it was just as good. Cesaro got busted in the head. He was bleeding from the side of his dome. Daniel Bryan took a lot of beating in this matchup once again and then tapped out to the sharpshooter, giving Cesaro another clean win. Daniel Bryan, I truly believe, is on a mission to put everybody over, as many people over as he can, before he eventually hangs up his boots in the next couple of years. But there should be more to it than this. The matches between these two guys are so good, you can't come up with a story as good as what we're seeing in the ring. Something to accompany this. Is this leading towards something to do with qualifying for the Elimination Chamber? Like, that would have been something worth seeing this match again so quickly for. It's not doing anything for Daniel Bryan to really keep losing here, but if that's the story, great. Daniel Bryan goes on a losing streak, trying to redeem himself. Cesaro's going to get some good exposure through this, but how many times can we see this now? This is the second time in 3 weeks we've seen this matchup. How many more times are we going to see it? You're going to water down how great their action is by having it over and over and over. Did we learn nothing from watching the best of 7 series between Cesaro and Sheamus? Or even further back in time when we had Benoit and Booker T do it? After a while, it's just like you don't care. So it's going to be something we're going to have to keep our eye on here. After this matchup, we had an interview with Bianca Belair. In the back, they recapped her winning the Royal Rumble. They showed footage of her parents on Instagram that would have been good to send into America's Funniest Home Videos. So Dad got so excited, he was jumping all over the place, jumping on the coffee table, ended up falling on his ass and almost knocking over his whole entire couch. Felt like Bob Saget should have been there, giving it a lead into the video. Or Alfonso Ribeiro if you're watching the more recent episodes of AFV. But I thought this was great. We finally got to see Bianca Belair without somebody interrupting her spotlight. She put over Asuka, talking about how taking on Asuka would be great, talking about how taking on Sasha would be great, and she's got a tough decision to make. And she was heading out towards the ring later tonight, possibly to tell us who it was going to be. And I thought this was a great way to put her over. It definitely established her as a babyface, as she's, putting her parents in funny skits, getting involved, being respectful and all that stuff. I love it. It's a great way to cement her as the sentimental babyface favorite, underdog favorite, if you want to look at it that way, going into her big match at WrestleMania. I loved it. She promises she's ready to make her challenge soon. Then we go into a match that definitely did not need to exist. This match angered me. And not so much for the fact that Bayley defeats Ruby Riott tonight, which is terrible. Ruby Riott right now definitely needs the win. Bayley doesn't need to be beating Ruby Riott right now. She's coming off of a run of over 380 days as the SmackDown Women's Champion. She can afford to lose and make Ruby Riott look decent at least. What makes me even more angry is that this matchup between these two girls was very entertaining. It was decent. Ruby Riott can go in the ring. Bayley is great at her job. And I thought this was a very good matchup. But what was killing it was the fact that the fucking commentary team only gave a shit about Billie Kay and her stupid resume and her stupid headshot and her stupid voice. Her whole entire involvement killed everything here. Michael Cole talking about how the Riott Squad eliminated her from the Royal Rumble. They were talking more about her than about what was going on in the ring, and there was no need for Billie Kay to be out there. I thought the Riott Squad made it known that she's out. She's been out of the group, but they're going to extend this story, which already seemingly had a conclusion. Billie Kay should be moving on to some other act or some other team, or at least get a decent partner so that you can fight against the Riott Squad and maybe start to rebuild a women's tag team division. We don't get any sense of that here. We just get a bunch of nonsense. We get Billie Kay trying to get involved, seemingly to make the save, as Bayley looked like she was going to hit the 3 count. But right, and not for nothing, she's doing this right in front of Liv Morgan. Liv Morgan's standing there. Billie Kay walked right in front of her and is going to get involved, and she's just standing there like, what? What? It's like, hey, listen, your tongue's not blue anymore. You don't got to stand there with your tongue hanging out like a dog. Go stop this gigantic Australian ostrich woman from getting in the ring. Why are you just standing there watching? You should have played hockey goalie. Stop that broad from getting anywhere near your friend's match, but no, instead you stood there with your ponytails like, what? What is going on? It was kind of a weird interference by Billie Kay. It shouldn't have even had anything to do with the finish. The match kind of continued for another 30 seconds after that supposed distraction, and then Bayley comes out with the win anyway. Billie Kay, whether she's speaking on the mic or moving, like even if she's just moving around, like trying to walk from the announce table to the ring, she's just cringe TV. This whole entire segment was completely useless. And doing things like this is going to cement the fact that the WWE will never have new stars. Because here you have a prime example. And perfect way to start to build momentum for Ruby, and you just leave everything on the table, give another win to Bayley, even though this match was as meaningless as most of the other matches on this show. Which is why this is the one for this evening to get the dreaded Poop Hammer. You deserve it. You deserve it. Terrible stuff going on for the women's division. Edge arrived at the building. We seen him walking in backstage. And then we got Bianca Belair's segment. She kicked off the second hour. And what a much better hour it would be for SmackDown. She got into the ring. She talked once again about Asuka and Sasha and promised she was going to put the EST in WrestleMania. When suddenly, and unfortunately, she was interrupted by
Reginald.
Reginald. What? I thought this was done. Carmella has lost every opportunity she has been given. And I don't give a shit what our false has to say. I don't care at all what Reginald has to say.
Reginald.
Reginald. It doesn't make any sense. And the one thing this segment could have done without was the existence of Carmella and her sommelier are false, are fake, are liar, are Reginald. No, thank you, bro. So anyway, he interrupts. He says a bunch of shit. I really wasn't listening. I was just rolling my eyes so hard that my ears actually stopped working. And then Sasha Banks would come out and save this segment, and that's all we really needed. She built up Bianca Belair, talked about how she's got her eye on her. Sasha Banks looked great. She was moving great, moving around like a cat, being all sexy and provocative. I liked this side of Sasha Banks. It was great. No wonder they got her hosting the Daytona 500 or kicking it off or whatever it is she's doing. She gets everybody's engines going. Imagine revving it up for Sasha Banks. I know you do, you dirty bastards. Anyway, so there's this great interaction between these two. Reginald steps in. He ends up getting his ass whipped, literally, by Bianca Belair with her gigantic, dangerous ponytail. And that would be the end of that. Bianca Belair does not get the chance to make any choice, leaving it in the air, leaving an air of suspense, doing the right thing in this segment. We then would go to the back. Paul Heyman tells Roman Reigns Edge is in the building, and he didn't seem too thrilled. We then would get a matchup with the SmackDown Tag Team Champions, the Dirty Dogs, Dolph Ziggler and Robert Roode, who had a match against Chad Gable and Otis. Oh, they're a tag team again. Imagine that. Who cares? This was useless. This doesn't really do anything for me. The best thing about this matchup is when Ziggler and Roode came out, they had a new theme song. Not that it was a great theme song by any stretch of the imagination, but it was better than having to hear, I'm here to tell you, man, I'm here to tell the world. And that awful Dolph Ziggler theme song that we've been hearing for the last 15 years. So bravo for that, Dirty Dogs. You got a new song. Great. You got the SmackDown Tag Team Championships. Great. You know what you don't got? Decent opponents. And this match was ruined even further by the involvement of the Street Profits just talking over this matchup, acting the fool, being ridiculous in the bottom left-hand corner, picture-in-picture style, and it just took me out of anything that was going on in the matchup. I barely cared as it was. And you just made it worse by doing silly shit like that. Much like having Billie Kay majorly took away from the Bayley versus Ruby Riott match earlier in the show. Same thing could be said here. You knew Chad Gable and Otis weren't getting the win, and we're only heading towards an eventual rematch for the Street Profits versus the Dogs to get their championships back, and I just really don't care because the tag team division is meaningless. Bobby Roode hits the glorious DDT for the win. We then had to waste time talking about how 33 million people watched the rematch between Hulk Hogan and Andre at the main event, which happened, I think it was 30-something years ago to the day. And they wanted to mention this, which is fine. I don't mind talking about the history of pro wrestling. You know what would have been better than having to hear this from Hulk Hogan? Actually, maybe talking about this with current wrestling superstars. Have a guy like Drew McIntyre or a Roman Reigns or a Kevin Owens or a Sami Zayn. I didn't mean to make that rhyme. It just kind of happens. Sit there and talk about maybe what this moment meant to them. Maybe it was the first time somebody on the roster actually sat and watched wrestling. Maybe somebody has a personal story they want to talk about Andre the Giant. There's never a bad time to talk about Andre the Giant, even though they usually pair it with Hulk Hogan. There's never a good time at this point to be bringing in the freaking old guys. And this was just a waste of time. Hulk Hogan talked about his match while sitting in his home. Jimmy Hart was in the background. He talked about the match, and then he equated this to Edge choosing between Drew and Roman for WrestleMania. Like, what? How about you pay respect to those classic moments by having the current crop of superstars tell everybody what they think or what it meant to them? Be a much better use of your time than bringing back Hulk Hogan. Edge was backstage once again. He was talking to Shinsuke Nakamura, giving him his endorsement, which I thought was very cool. And I'm salivating at the thought of Edge versus Shinsuke Nakamura at some time in the near future. I think that would be great. We had a really, really fun, really athletic triple threat Intercontinental Championship match where Big E would retain the title against Apollo Crews and Sami Zayn. I loved this match. A lot of great stuff going on here. These three guys just kicked ass. They went out there and they stole the show tonight. Best match on the card, hands down. Great main event matchup for the show. One of the most impressive moments was how one of the best spots, Apollo Crews caught Sami Zayn, was getting ready to give him a suplex, and then Big E would come up from behind and scoop up Apollo Crews, German suplex him while simultaneously suplexing Sami Zayn. Hard to describe vocally, great to watch visually. If you missed the Intercontinental Championship triple threat match, go back and check it out. It was fantastic. Big E celebrates at the end after he hits the big ending for the win on Apollo Crews. I thought it was great. This is the type of matchups that we should be getting for the Intercontinental Championship. Some athletic, really contested matchups that are believable. There was not one moment during that match that you wouldn't believe it if Sami won, or you couldn't believe if Apollo Crews won, because they all acted and performed like Intercontinental Championship level athletes. And I appreciate athleticism to that degree. It was really just a fun match, and I enjoyed every moment of it. And if they continue on this path, the Intercontinental Championship could be very well respected again. And the only thing negative I think I could say, or the only thing wrong with this, is the fact that it happened on just a random SmackDown, right? And this is the type of a matchup that you would want to build towards. Blowing off two feuds at the same time in a triple threat for a championship should be going down on pay-per-views. This match would have been just fine in the mid-card of a WrestleMania. We have two pay-per-views on the horizon before the big show. Not the big show, not that big show. Before the biggest show of the year, WrestleMania, we're going to have the Elimination Chamber, and we're going to have Fastlane. You couldn't have saved that for this, or are we just going to rematch it now because it was so good? Now we'll have it on the pay-per-view. Now we'll build up towards it and do it again for a pay-per-view. It's lost some of its luster when you're doing it again. Then we ended this show in a great way, with Edge coming out talking about how crazy the last 7 months of his life has been. His dream of winning the Royal Rumble and main eventing WrestleMania coming true once again, taking back something he's never lost. Talked about how he came in at number 1, survived till the end, and then he listed all of the options he could challenge. He talked about Drew McIntyre. He mentioned Finn Balor. And he mentioned Roman Reigns. He talked about how everybody's giving him different advice. His friends are telling him to face this guy. His family's telling him to face that guy. Some guy on the corner is telling him something completely different. And then out to the ring, interrupting, comes Roman and Jay and Paul Heyman. Edge, not being one to be scared at all, looked right at Roman Reigns and was like, bro, you brought backup? What do I got you shook? What are you scared already? And I thought that was ballsy of him right out of the gate. He said, I'm out here alone. You bringing out backup? Roman gave Edge his word, talked about how nothing was going to happen, you know. Edge says he knows he's in Reigns' head, and that's why he's got Jimmy Uso with him. Reigns sent Uso to the back. He then talked to Edge and said to Edge, you've disrespected my family. And he demanded that Edge acknowledge him. Acknowledge him as the WrestleMania main event. He looked into the eyes of Edge and kept saying, say my name. Just say my name. And then Reigns would step a little bit closer to get into Edge's face when suddenly, taking his cue from Randy Orton and taking a move from Stone Cold Steve Austin, Kevin Owens came out of nowhere and delivered a stunner to the Universal Champion. Edge gets out of there without having to reveal who his challenger will be, or who he will choose to challenge, more accurately, leaving some suspense in the air, leaving their time to tease a few things. Edge could now show up on Raw and still fuck with Drew McIntyre. He could show up on NXT and mess with Finn Balor and then come to SmackDown again and make Roman Reigns even more mad, continuing maybe to refuse him just to get in his head. Even if he ends up picking Roman, by the time we get to that, the build could be tremendous. It'll be very interesting. The war of words between those two would be great. Would be great. Any of the 3 choices that Edge makes are going to be fantastic. No matter who he chooses, out of the 3, I don't see him beating Roman. I think he could possibly beat Drew McIntyre and regain the championship belt that he never lost. There's a definite possibility they can do what they tried to do unsuccessfully with Charlotte last year with Edge and have him win the NXT championship, go down there, put over a bunch of talent, work with a bunch of the young kids, and then he could always come back up to the main roster and do something else before he bows out. It'll be interesting no matter who he chooses to pick. You know what won't be interesting? Seeing Seth Rollins return. The only thing that should happen with Seth Rollins right now is he should be inserted into a program with Daniel Bryan. He cost Daniel Bryan his opportunity to win the Royal Rumble this year, maybe his last shot at the Royal Rumble. Daniel Bryan should be pissed at Seth Rollins. He can come back and preach his Messiah. I'm here to save everybody. I'm the Messiah. And then Daniel Bryan can get right in his face and call him on his bullshit, and we're off to the races. Daniel Bryan versus Seth Rollins, is that WrestleMania worthy? I think it just might be. And what else are you going to do with Daniel Bryan? Why is Seth Rollins coming back? He's not going to be in championship contention, right? Maybe Seth Rollins versus Big E? I would much rather see Big E versus other people. If you're Seth Rollins, why do you want to take a step down? Right? You were on top. You don't want to take a step backwards. I hate when wrestlers do that. But that's just me, my personal preference. And that is pretty much how everything went down on tonight's episode of Smackdown following the Royal Rumble, their first episode on the already wild road to WrestleMania. Smackdown, always easier to digest then the red pill of Monday nights, which makes me want to put myself to sleep, which is Monday Night Raw. Thank you guys, as always, for being here with me again as we bring the hammer down on SmackDown like nobody else can. If you had a great time with me here today, and if it made you laugh, if it made you cry, if it made you understand why tonight's SmackDown was a big old hunkin' piece of crap, hit that like button for me. Share this video with anybody else you think might enjoy what we do here on Sledgehammer TV. Anybody that you know that might want to bring the hammer down with us. And then you guys can infect my comment section with your awesomeness. And don't forget to do that. Drop me a comment. Let me know what you thought about tonight's episode of SmackDown. And most importantly, hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. And make sure you hit the notification bell so that you will remain notified each and every single time a video just like this one goes live on Sledgehammer TV. My name is Nick Nightmare. This is the Team Thor, the Sledgehammer, the official Sledgehammer of the Sledgehammer Wrestling Show. His tag team partner, the World Heavyweight Champion of all the microphones in all the world, Mr. Blue the Snowball, the most important member of the team, as always, each and every one of you. That, my friends, is going to do it. If you missed anything on the channel, the Royal Rumble review, the Go Home Show reviews, all of it will be nestled nicely up in the annotations up above. We are out of here, and we will see you next time right here on your new favorite wrestling show, the Sledgehammer Wrestling Show, only on Sledgehammer TV, right here on YouTube.com. Boom.